has no real name on file, no face most people have seen, and in the classic version, no voice left to use. On paper, he barely exists. We're talking about a character who has the outline of a man in black, with almost everything important about him redacted. And yet somehow, that lack of information and detail is exactly what made him one of the most popular characters in G.I. Joe history. Yes, it is indeed Snake Eyes. Welcome back to our channel. Today we'll talk about one of the most mysterious characters in action figure and comic book history, Snake Eyes. The thing to realize is that what made every kid fight to grab the black figure off the shelves was not only what they knew about him, but also what they did not. It was the visor, the mask, and the silence behind all of that was a history filled with war, loss, loyalty, and guilt, which explains why the classic Snake Eyes never says a word. So before we delve into the different origins of Snake Eyes, it's best to first understand who he is and what his core identity is. If we start with the constants, the first fact is this: Snake Eyes is one of the original and deadliest members of the G.I. Joe team. In his classic file card and comic history, much of his personal life, military record, birth name, birthplace, and service number remain classified. His primary military specialty is infantry, and his secondary specialty is hand-to-hand combat instructor. He trained at the Military Assistance Command, Vietnam Recondo School in Nha Trang, and served in Southeast Asia with Stalker and Tommy Arashikage, the man who would later become Storm Shadow. After the war, Snake Eyes moved into the world of the Arashikage ninja clan in Japan, studying martial arts and becoming one of their most lethal students. All of this shows that he was dangerous from the beginning, not someone to mess with. Another prominent characteristic of Snake Eyes is his silence. In the classic Marvel comic continuity, his muteness is the result of horrific injuries. During an early G.I. Joe mission, a helicopter accident sends flaming fuel into his face. Snake Eyes saves Scarlet, but his face is burned and his vocal cords are damaged, leaving him unable to speak. G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 27, specifically reveals that after the clash, his face was on fire and his voice was gone. In the live-action films, however, his silence is handled differently. In G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, Snake Eyes takes a vow of silence after the Hard Master's death. In Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins, he's not mute for most of the movie at all. So when we talk about Snake Eyes being permanently mute, we mostly mean the classic comic-based version. Another core constant across most universes is his anonymity. His real name is almost never revealed, and details like birthplace, rank, grade, and service number are usually classified or hidden. Lots of hints exist, but there's no simple canonical reveal across all versions. His deepest ties are with Storm Shadow, his blood brother, rival, and sometimes ally. The Arashikage Masters, especially the Hard Master and Soft Master, and enemies like Zartan and Cobra Commander, whose actions destroyed Snake Eyes' family and clan connections in the classic comic continuity. All in all, Snake Eyes is no ordinary hero. He's not the typical loud, chirpy, ego-driven warrior. He's the quiet black hole center of the G.I. Joe universe. He doesn't say much, but trouble and tragedy keep getting drawn toward him, and when everything happens around him, he quietly absorbs it. And I don't think we can move on before understanding the visuals of this guy. The original 1982 action figure wore an all-black commando outfit with a mask covering his face. The figure's unpainted black plastic was partially a cost-saving choice, but it accidentally created one of the most iconic looks in the line. The 1985 version added the famous visor, a more polished black bodysuit, a sword, and commando weapons, turning him into a perfect visual fusion of soldier and ninja. Basically, his look represents his dual life as commando and martial arts ghost. Origins across continuities. Larry Hama's Marvel run of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, ran from 1982 to 1994, and became the primary canon for Snake Eyes. Almost all serious Snake Eyes lore begins here. There are three major pillars to this comic version: the Silent Mission, his Vietnam and Arashikage backstory, and the murder of the Hard Master. So let's get into it. Firstly, we'll talk about the Silent Mission in issue 21, Silent Interlude, released in 1984. This issue has no dialogue, no captions, no sound effects whatsoever. It is pure visual storytelling, and somehow it works wonderfully. The story goes like this. Scarlet has been captured and is being held in Destro's castle. Snake Eyes infiltrates the castle to rescue her, silently, without any team backup. This is also where we see a figure similar to Snake Eyes, but all dressed in white. Storm Shadow is introduced, and their connection is immediately teased through visual storytelling. Their mirrored stance, similar fighting style, and matching Arashikage clan tattoos grab the reader's attention. At the end of the issue, Storm Shadow spots a red tattoo on Snake's forearm that matches his own. This was new. This visual framing presented them like reflections of each other before any full backstory had been given. It was Larry Hama's way of letting readers know that yes, something is definitely up. Issue 21 also made one thing clear. Snake Eyes is a character who does not need dialogue or words to support him. He can carry an entire comic even without a voice or single line. That is one of the reasons Silent Interlude became legendary. Issues 26 and 27, titled Snake Eyes: The Origin, deliver the first major backstory reveal. Here, it's revealed that Snake Eyes served in Southeast Asia, while Stalker and Tommy Arashikage would become Storm Shadow. Stalker recalls that Tommy and Snake Eyes were close during the war, and one mission made their bond even stronger. Snake Eyes was badly wounded, and despite strict orders to leave him, Tommy went back and saved him. That act helped forge their blood brotherhood. Upon returning home, Snake Eyes is informed by Hawk that his entire family has been killed in a car accident. The driver responsible was a drunk man who also died in the crash. Later, this detail becomes even more important because the driver turns out to be Cobra Commander's brother. After hearing the news and realizing he has no family left, Snake Eyes accepts Tommy's invitation to study martial arts with the Arashikage clan in Japan. Soon, their time together makes them even closer. But of course, happiness doesn't last long in this man's life, does it? The story of Hardmaster's murder and Zartan's role is revealed across later issues, especially in the long-running Arashikage backstory. The key technique involved is not Blind Sword, but the Cloak of the Chameleon, where the Hardmaster demonstrates how to mimic another person so perfectly that even breath and body rhythm can be copied. While he's demonstrating this by imitating Snake Eyes, Zartan fires an arrow meant for Snake Eyes and accidentally kills the Hardmaster instead. The arrow appears to be connected to Storm Shadow, and Storm Shadow is blamed for the murder. This pushes him into exile and eventually toward Cobra, not simply because he's evil, but because he wants to find the real killer and clear his name. Much later, the truth becomes clear. Cobra Commander wanted Snake Eyes dead because he blamed him for the death of his brother, the drunk driver from the crash that killed Snake Eyes' family. Cobra Commander hired Firefly, and the job ultimately ended up with Zartan. Zartan trying to kill Snake Eyes killed the wrong man because Hardmaster was imitating Snake Eyes at that exact moment. So in one mistake, Zartan destroyed the Arashikage clan, pushed Storm Shadow into exile, and put Snake Eyes on a path of lifelong guilt and suffering. It's like tragedy is always standing behind Snake Eyes, waiting for the worst possible moment. Moving on, the next version comes from the animation. The Sunbow G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero animated material was many 80s kids' first exposure to Snake Eyes. However, it portrayed him more as a mute commando and ninja without giving him the full Vietnam Arashikage, Zartan, or Cobra Commander backstory from the comics. He was visually striking, cool and mysterious, but the cartoon did not explore the emotional depth that Hama gave the comics. The comic Snake Eyes and the cartoon Snake Eyes feel like two different depths of the same character. Oh, and we can't forget Snake Eyes' wolf companion Timber. He's awesome. Timber appears in the franchise as Snake Eyes' loyal wolf, and symbolically, he fits the lonely wolf side of Snake Eyes perfectly. Timber reminds us of Snake Eyes' isolation from human society, and how naturally he connects with a creature who also does not have much to say. If we talk about one of the best animated Snake Eyes versions, many fans would point to G.I. Joe Resolute from 2009. It was a darker, more adult-targeted animated miniseries written by Warren Ellis and released through Adult Swim. It uses a tone much closer to the comics than most earlier cartoons, with Storm Shadow and the Arashikage history present in a leaner, sharper way. Here we see Snake Eyes engaging in the most intense, solo infiltration inside Cobra facilities. Once again, silent, efficient, and deadly. It's almost like Silent Interlude in animated form. For instance, in one sequence, a hypersonic transport carries Snake Eyes near his destination. Upon arrival, he jumps down, uses a flight suit to glide toward the island, lands, removes it, and immediately charges a lone Cobra guard. Within seconds, more troopers come forward, and Snake Eyes eliminates them with brutal silence. Like I said, this is a must-watch animated version for tone and combat. Then, in 2010, IDW continued Larry Hama's G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero continuity from where the Marvel series had left off. It was almost as if the classic comic had never ended. This continuation gets wild. In G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero issue 213, Snake Eyes sacrifices himself to defeat the resurrected Serpentor. Later, Sean Collins, also known as Throwdown, takes on the Snake Eyes identity to convince Cobra that the original Snake Eyes is still alive. That choice is controversial, but it also shows something important about Snake Eyes. He's not just a man. By that point, he has become a symbol, an identity, and a terrifying psychological weapon against Cobra. Then we have the 2010 animated series G.I. Joe Renegades, which ran for one season and told a more serialized story. Here, Snake Eyes is a core team member. The show makes a deeper attempt to adapt and integrate the emotional Hama-style dynamics into a new continuity. Episodes titled Return of the Arashikage Part 1 and Part 2 deal directly with Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, Jinx, and the clan's history. Renegades updates the lore but keeps the heart. The same silent and mysterious Snake Eyes, the wounded history with Storm Shadow, and the tragedy around the Arashikage clan. It may not be a direct adaptation of the comics, but it does its best to preserve the emotional arc. Lastly, we need to talk about the live-action films, which are alternate interpretations of the comics and not replacements for Larry Hama's origin. The first one is G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra from 2009. Here, Snake Eyes is played by Ray Park, with Leo Howard playing the younger version of the character. The movie gives Snake Eyes a childhood origin with the Arashikage clan. As a child, he's found stealing food and fights young Tommy Arashikage, who later becomes Storm Shadow. Hardmaster takes Snake Eyes in, and over time, Snake Eyes becomes the favorite student. This creates jealousy in Tommy. In this version, it appears that Tommy murders the Hardmaster out of jealousy and flees. On learning this, Snake Eyes takes a vow of silence, which is very different from the comic origin, where his muteness comes from physical injury. Later, when Snake Eyes faces Storm Shadow as an adult, he stabs him and lets him fall into the icy waters of Cobra's Arctic base. The next live-action series is 2013's G.I. Joe: Retaliation. Ray Park returns as Snake Eyes. This time, Snake Eyes is framed by Zartan for assassinating the president of Pakistan under G.I. Joe orders, while Storm Shadow disguises himself as Snake to help free Cobra Commander from prison. With the help of Jinx, Snake Eyes captures Storm Shadow and brings him to the Blind Master so he can face punishment for the Hardmaster's murder. But this is when Snake Eyes discovers the actual truth. Zartan killed the Hardmaster and framed Storm Shadow. Storm Shadow had joined Cobra to uncover the truth and avenge his uncle's death. Once the truth comes out, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow team up to stop Cobra Commander's plan to destroy several countries and take over the world. In the final battle, Snake Eyes allows Storm Shadow to deal with Zartan by giving him the Blade of Justice. This sequel basically retcons the first movie's simpler betrayal story and brings it much closer to the comic idea that Storm Shadow was framed. Last but not least, we have the 2021 spin-off Snake Eyes: G.I. Joe Origins, which takes place in an alternate continuity and stars Henry Golding. This movie is an entire reimagining with a lot of changes. It begins with a young boy in hiding with his father, trying to stay clear of assassins led by Mr. Augustine. They're discovered, and the father is forced to roll dice before being killed. He rolls doubles, or Snake Eyes, and the boy later takes that name to hide his true identity. Fast forward 20 years, and Snake Eyes has become a deadly underground fighter. He's recruited by Yakuza boss Kenta Takamura, who offers to help him find his father's killer, if Snake Eyes works for him. Snake Eyes begins doing dirty work for Kenta, but when Kenta orders him to kill Tommy Arashikage, Snake Eyes instead helps Tommy escape. Tommy then invites him to join the Arashikage clan. The big twist is that Snake Eyes is secretly working with Kenta to steal the Jewel of the Sun from the clan in exchange for access to his father's killer. He eventually steals the jewel and delivers it to Kenta and the Baroness, but after learning that Mr. Augustine is a Cobra agent, Snake Eyes gives up his bloodlust and spares him. He then returns to warn the Arashikage clan and helps them fight Kenta. In the end, Snake Eyes traps Kenta in the Anaconda Pit, where the snake devours him. The clan judges Snake Eyes pure of heart for abandoning revenge and welcomes him back. But Tommy has broken his promise not to use the Jewel of the Sun and leaves the clan, setting himself on the path of becoming Storm Shadow. Soon after, Scarlet approaches Snake Eyes and reveals that his father was a G.I. Joe agent. Snake Eyes then begins a mission to find Tommy and bring him back to the clan. This movie changes a lot, especially because Snake Eyes talks throughout most of it, and doesn't begin as the silent, scarred commando fans know from the classic comics. So it looks like we've come to the end of this video. Seemed like an intense one, not gonna lie. But see, Snake Eyes is what happens when everything you care about gets taken away, and you still decide to stick to the righteous path and choose discipline instead. War took his colleagues and family. Cobra took his clan peace from him. An explosion took his face and voice in the classic continuity, and yet he stood strong and stood tall. He wrapped all that pain in black cloth, armor, and visor, and kept doing his duty. That's why he's never needed any catchphrase or speech to be remembered by. Anyway, which origin of Snake Eyes did you like the best? If you ask my opinion, it lies with the majority as well. The Larry Hama comics, of course. Duh. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. That's all for today.